Hi folks, believe it or not, today we're jumping back into our roofing project. Now last month I finished up a full restoration and replacement of our main house roof. Now one very important part of the roof is the guttering. It's what you do with all that wet stuff that falls out the sky that we seem to have so much of. Today's video is all about that, and I'm going to share with you some of the details and the products that we used. So back in sunny September, when I got up on the scaffolding, the very first thing I did was start to remove the cast iron guttering that was on there. It was a pretty sorry state to look at. It was far beyond repair. Unfortunately, when I started the project, all I wanted to do was restore it, put back the original. It wasn't to be. It had either rusted right through, there was cracks, and actually it turned out that much of it wasn't cast iron anymore. At some point in the last 50, 60 years or so, some of it had been replaced with a replica system. In actual fact, what it was this stuff, cast aluminium, and I managed to remove 8 full lengths of this product here. So you can see the paint's failed, but that's all that's wrong with it because the whole thing is completely solid. These are going to be blast cleaned, repowder coated. I'm going to reuse them on this building here on the garage conversion and the single story part of the house. I managed to find the maker's mark on the back of them. Turned out it was a company who are very much still in business, and one thing led to another, and today we're working with Rainclear and Alumasc guttering to show you what it's all about. First up, we're just going to jump straight into the footage on the back of the house, and then once I've shown you that easy run, we'll jump into the tricky bit, which is the front with the bay window and lots of angles. So there we go, it looked relatively straightforward, didn't it? But actually, let's not always trust that fascias are perfectly level and houses are perfectly straight. Things were a bit skewiff back there on the back of the house, but we got there in the end. It's just a case of really taking your time to get a nice even fall all the way along. It doesn't need to be much at all. You know, water's always going to find the lowest point. But what you do need to do is make sure that that's an even fall. The issue is that there's no give at all in a cast section. It's nice and straight. So if one of your brackets is a tiny bit low, it just won't be supported there. So you want to make sure, working your way along, that it's fully supported on those brackets. One thing on the finish, the nice thing I was able to do, bearing in mind that this is all powder coated to order, they stock certain colours, but I was able to get them to colour match this to all of that joinery I did. So this colour, I just sent them the round number, they sent me some samples to make sure I was happy, and they also were able to produce this sort of textured finish. So that sort of heavier paint build-up on there just gave more of the impression of traditional cast iron than just super smooth all the way along. Anyway, let's go straight into the front of the house. There's a downpipe to fit first, and then our full run of guttering with that bay window and lots of angles. So I'm going to start setting out our brackets like we did on the back, and this time I'm going to start at the highest point just to make sure we can tuck it up as tight as we can up to the slates, and then we can work our way back down. I won't lie, I'm not sure bay windows are the easiest bit of guttering to cut your teeth on, but I think we're slowly getting there. I'm kind of thinking maybe I could use a water level, you know, with the hose, and then I could have got all the way around, but at the end of the day, we're just looking for a slight fall. Even a level wouldn't be the end of the world, but I'd rather keep a slow fall all the way around here. We've only got one discharge point, so we need to work our way around sensibly to make sure we haven't got like a dead end up here and we're going to end up with water up here stuck, which is what happened and why we had so many issues with the original woodwork. So we're hopefully around the hardest bit now. I've given myself about 20 mil of fall left to deal with, and we've got about 6 meters to go. Right, today's the day where we finally get the whole front of the house fitted properly. I'm going to take off the first of the old downpipes, so this is actually an aluminium one, so it's not original. This is basically the same as what we're putting in now. It's lasted really well, apart from the paint. Now we've got modern powder coated stuff, it should last much longer. So we'll take this one out and we can get this blast clean and restored and then used on the garage conversion. So here's one of the spikes which was holding it into the wall. This is the new cast section, so basically all of the shoes and the brackets are cast, and then the actual downpipes are like an extruded aluminium. The nice thing is that aluminium is so lightweight that when I want to clean and repoint this wall next year, it's quite easy. It's only 4 screws basically. I can remove those sections and put them back in. It's not like removing big heavy cast iron, and these are just simply screwed in, so it's a bit easier. So I'm going to whip out this cast section. There's intentionally a little bit of slop in the joint here, which is quite handy because if you've got irregular walls, like most old houses, then we can move things around. It's not really tight and fixed. So I've got that as plumb as I can, that bottom shoe. Now what we're going to do is follow this up. I'm going to use a 6-foot level and run my way up. So I've worked out that I can afford to cut this first pipe down and we can get our bracket onto this nice flat point here. Then we can work our way up from there. So we've cut off the top. I've used a cold cut saw, just a normal saw rather than an angle grinder, so we don't want to damage our paint finish. They seat fully down on, and the top one is where we need our expansion joint. We've got to come back in and silicone all this up. What I want to do now is get everything dry fit, so I'm just going to put one temporary screw in this side so it can't fall over, but it still allows us to get all of our cuts done. Hopefully it's going to line up on my pencil mark. The sockets again are a little bit loose, so it does give you a little bit of leeway, but we want to make sure that this is nice and vertical, and so is this. But I think we're at a point now where we can start fixing from the bottom, coming up, siliconing, putting the screws in. We'll drill these 2 now, and then we can work our way along the guttering. I'm not going to fit the offset until I'm happy with exactly where everything is. All the test fitting and all that I've done, dry fit it. taken it all off now and I've cleaned it all, you want to just make sure it's completely free of grease or anything like that at the points where we're joining, because we're using a low modulus silicon to join them, and then they're bolted through here. Now the brackets are spaced at, you need 2 per length. These are 6 foot lengths. It's all done in inches and feet with this old style guttering. So we'll just make sure everything's going to line up. Our hole's lining up. It's all this low modulus 791 type. I've gone with white because it's probably the most discreet against our custom colour here. The main thing to make sure at this point, because we've already got our slates on, is the back edge of this gutter must get underneath our eaves carrier, which is where the felt lies. Little bead around the hole. So we've got the washer seated down on silicone, and then we're going to pop the nut on top of that without getting covered in silicone. So the nuts, bolts and washers are all aluminium, so you don't want to substitute them for just regular steel, because you'll get issues with the metals corroding each other or messing with each other. So you've got the screw head underneath. You can get a flat head in there, but you don't really want to be tightening it because it's aluminium, it's so soft you'll just end up marring it and making a mess, and when you look up from below you might be able to see that. So I'm just locking it in. It's quite hard to get a socket in there. You might be able to at the lowest point, but it's just a case of slowly tweaking it, getting it tight but not over tight, and that's all we need to do. And there should be a good amount of squeeze out underneath. I just use one of these tools just to scrape that off, and then we can just keep everything clean. I won't lie, it's a little bit more fiddly than just clipping in regular plastic stuff, but you know, nothing's easy when you're trying to use traditional materials and long-lasting materials like this. I think once you've got all the joints in place and they're all tightened up, they're really going nowhere. As far as fixing it to the roof, it's not as heavy as cast iron, so there is a very slim chance that wind could lift it up. So you have got the original holes in the back along here. You can just put a fixing into the back and that'll lock it to the roof and make sure that nothing's going to move around on you. Right. So I admit it, guttering is not glamorous and it's not the most exciting thing to be talking about, but I'm going to put it out there that I think guttering can easily make or break a roof, and I see so many old houses along our main road here where 95% of the houses are over 100 years old. Nearly all of them have plastic, old looking plastic, it's got algae on it, you know, you can really ruin a house by going that route. Even houses that are listed around here, there are plastic, you know, gutters on there. And there's always a time and a place for plastic guttering. And sometimes it is just a budget-led thing. But actually, if you're trying to do a really nice, long-lasting job on a roof, it's the very same thing as me opting to go with a nice, high-end slate, natural slate for the roof. Yes, it hurts when you buy this stuff, but actually you know it's the right thing. When you've got an old house, you've got to do it right, and it's got to last. And yes, you can fake it. You could fake it with man-made slates. You could fake it with fiberglass chimneys, and of course you can fake it with cast iron effect guttering. But you can't fake it that well. And you can always say, if you stand at the front of this house now and you look up, there is no doubt in your mind that it's nice metal cast guttering. And also, if you spent your own time up there re-roofing a house, to know that you're not going to have to go back up there, or you're not going to have creaking plastic and things like that, it's just one thing that I know within the lifetime of us being in this house, I doubt there's any chance we're going to need to do much at all with this guttering. That powder coated finish is such a long lasting finish that we can pretty much rest easy. As always, any of the tools, the sealants and things that I use during the install, I will stick down in the description here. I will also do a link to Rainclear's website, and you can see all of this stuff, all the pricing and all the options available. And also check out their other guttering, because they've got everything from kind of galvanized to copper. There's some really cool stuff. And having looked myself, I am very tempted to go with a nice run of copper guttering along the new workshop. You know, against wooden cladding, it looks really nice. So there may be more guttering excitement to come. If you haven't seen all the videos on the roofing project, there are lots of them. There is a whole playlist. You can go and check out that. Every stage of the roof, from getting up there on the first day and pulling off the old stuff, through to getting down and looking up at the new stuff. You can find it all there. A huge thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, our followers on Instagram, and everyone who followed us through that project. It was a long and exhausting one, but it's one that I'm so glad we did, and definitely a DIY bucket list tick. And of course, a big thank you to Rainclear for sponsoring this video. But that's it. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.